went to visit my daughter and found her packing her bags. She said, "Mom, I can't live like this anymore." Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. The highway stretched before me, like a ribbon of fading daylight, the autumn sun casting long shadows across the asphalt. I had made this drive so many times before that my hands knew the steering wheel's grooves, my feet the pressure needed for each curve and straight away. 2 hours and 17 minutes from my front door to Emily's apartment in the city. I had timed it countless times, always hoping to shave off a minute or two, as if arriving faster would somehow give me more time with her. The radio played softly, some talk show I wasn't really listening to. My mind was already at her door, imagining her smile when she opened it, the way she'd pull me into a hug that smelled of her lavender shampoo and whatever candle she'd been burning lately. Emily always loved candles. Even as a little girl, she'd beg me to light them at dinner, watching the flame dance while she ate her vegetables in concentrated silence. I smiled at the memory. She'd been such a careful child, so thoughtful about everything. When she learned to walk, she'd take each step with deliberate consideration, as if calculating the physics of it all. Her father used to joke that she'd be an engineer or a mathematician, someone who needed to understand the world before moving through it. Instead, she'd become a graphic designer, which made perfect sense when I thought about it. She still calculated everything, she just did it with colors and shapes now. The exit sign appeared, and I signaled even though there was no one behind me. Habit. My mother had drilled good driving manners into me, and I'd done the same with Emily. Be predictable, she used to say. Let people know what you're going to do before you do it. It's the surprises that cause accidents. Emily's neighborhood always surprised me a little. It was nicer than I'd expected when she first moved there 3 years ago. Tree-lined streets with old brownstones that had been converted into apartments. She'd been so excited when she found the place, sending me photos of the high ceilings and the big windows that let in floods of natural light. Perfect for working from home, she'd said. I can set up my desk right by the window and watch the seasons change. I'd helped her move in that August, the two of us sweating through our clothes as we hauled boxes up 3 flights of stairs. Her father had meant to come, but work had gotten in the way. It usually did. That was one of the reasons we divorced when Emily was 12. He loved her. I never doubted that. But he loved his career with a passion that left little room for anything else. Emily had understood, or at least she'd seemed to. She was always so understanding, so quick to forgive, to make excuses for people. It's fine, Mom, she'd say, whenever he missed a recital or a birthday dinner. He's just busy. He'll make it up to me. I wondered sometimes if I'd taught her that. To be too understanding. To accept less than she deserved, because it was easier than making a fuss. The thought sat uncomfortably in my chest as I pulled onto her street. I was being silly. This was just a regular visit. I'd called her last week, and she'd sounded fine. A little tired, maybe. But who wasn't tired these days? The world seemed designed to exhaust us all. I found a parking spot half a block from her building and gathered my things. I'd brought her favorite cookies, the chocolate chip ones with sea salt that she'd loved since childhood. I'd made them fresh this morning, the kitchen warm with the smell of butter and sugar. The container was still slightly warm in my hands. The walk to her door felt longer than usual. Maybe it was my imagination, or maybe I was just getting older. 56 wasn't ancient, but it wasn't young either. My knees reminded me of that fact every morning. I climbed the stairs to her third-floor apartment, my hand trailing along the banister that had been painted over so many times it felt thick and smooth under my palm. The building was quiet except for the muffled sound of a television somewhere and the creaking of old wood under my feet. When I reached her door, I paused. Something felt off, though I couldn't have said what. The hallway seemed dimmer than usual, or maybe it was just that the bulb nearest her door had burned out. I knocked 3 times, our little pattern. Knock, knock, knock. I am here, I am here, I am here. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time. Emily? Honey, it's Mom. I heard movement inside, footsteps that seemed hesitant, starting and stopping. Then silence again. My heart began to beat faster. I told myself I was being ridiculous. She was probably in the shower, or wearing headphones, or had simply not heard me. Emily? I tried the doorknob, and to my surprise, it turned. She never left her door unlocked. Never. I'd taught her better than that, especially in the city. I pushed the door open slowly. Honey, I'm coming in. The apartment was dim, all the curtains drawn, despite it being only 4 in the afternoon. The usually bright space felt cave-like, suffocating. And it was cold. Had she turned off the heat? The air had that stale quality of a place that hadn't been open to the outside world in days. Emily? Then I saw her. She was standing in the middle of the living room, surrounded by suitcases and bags, her back to me. She was holding one of her sweaters, the blue one I'd given her last Christmas, clutching it against her chest like a child with a security blanket. Mom, she said without turning around. Her voice was flat, hollow. Sweetheart, what's going on? Are you going somewhere? She finally turned to face me, and my breath caught in my throat. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face blotchy from crying. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hair, usually so carefully styled, was pulled back in a messy knot. Mom, I can't live like this anymore. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and terrible. I set down the container of cookies on the entry table, my hands suddenly shaking. Can't live like what? Emily, what's happened? She shook her head, looking away from me, down at the sweater in her hands. I should have told you before. I should have told you a long time ago. I moved toward her, wanting to pull her into my arms the way I had when she was small, and the world had hurt her. But something in her posture stopped me. She looked like she might shatter if touched. Tell me what, honey, you're scaring me. She let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. I'm scaring you? That's funny. I've been scared for 2 years, and I'm only just now doing something about it. 2 years. The timeline clicked in my head. 2 years ago was when she'd met David. They'd been together ever since, and 6 months ago, he'd moved in with her. I'd only met him a handful of times. He was handsome in that careful way some men are, with perfectly styled hair and expensive clothes. He worked in finance, something with investments that I'd never fully understood. He was polite when we met, attentive to Emily, though there was something about his smile that never quite reached his eyes. But I'd told myself I was being paranoid. Wasn't every mother a little suspicious of the man who dated her daughter? Emily had seemed happy. She'd smiled when she talked about him, made excuses when he couldn't come to family dinners, defended his long work hours. Now, looking at her surrounded by packed bags, I realized those smiles had been getting smaller, harder to find. When was the last time I'd heard her laugh, really laugh, the way she used to? Is this about David? I asked quietly. She flinched at his name. Actually flinched, like I'd raised my hand to her. I'm leaving him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm leaving, and I can't tell him where I'm going, and I need to be gone before he gets home from work. The fear in her voice sent ice through my veins. Emily, has he hurt you? She was quiet for so long, I thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was so small I had to strain to hear it. Not the way you mean. He's never hit me. He's too smart for that. I felt something crack inside my chest. Sweetheart, sit down. Please, tell me everything. She sank onto the couch, still holding that blue sweater. I sat beside her, close but not touching, waiting. I'd learned long ago that you can't force someone to talk. You have to let them find their own way to the words. It started small, she finally said, staring at the wall. Little things. He'd ask where I was going when I left the apartment, who I was meeting, what time I'd be back. I thought he was just interested, like he cared about my day. She paused, pulling the sweater tighter. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. Then he started getting upset if I didn't answer my phone right away. He'd call me over and over until I picked up. Once, I was in a movie with Sarah. You remember Sarah from college? I'd put my phone on silent. When I came out and saw 17 missed calls, I panicked. I thought something terrible had happened. I called him back, and he was so angry. He said I'd disrespected him by ignoring him. That if I loved him, I'd always answer. My hands clenched in my lap, but I stayed quiet, letting her continue. I started answering every time after that, even if I was in a meeting, even if I was in the bathroom. It was just easier than dealing with the aftermath. And he'd always apologize later, say he just worried about me because he loved me so much, that the city was dangerous and he needed to know I was safe. I thought of all the times I'd called her over the past 2 years, and she'd sounded distracted, rushed. I'd assumed she was busy with work. I'd never considered this. Then he started commenting on my clothes. Nothing mean, just little observations. That dress makes you look like you're trying too hard. Those jeans are a bit tight, don't you think? People might get the wrong idea. I started dressing differently, more conservatively. I told myself it didn't matter. They were just clothes. She laughed that awful laugh again, the one with no humor in it. Then it was my friends. He didn't like Sarah. Said she was a bad influence, that she was always trying to get me to go out drinking, which wasn't even true. We'd just get coffee usually, but I saw her less and less because it wasn't worth the fight. And when I did see her, I'd have to text him constantly to prove I was where I said I'd be. I felt sick. How had I not seen this? How had I not known? He started going through my phone. At first, he'd do it openly, say he was just borrowing it to look something up. Then I caught him doing it while I was asleep. When I confronted him, he said he was checking to see if I was cheating on him. He said his ex had cheated, and he just needed reassurance. I felt so guilty. I gave him all my passwords to prove I had nothing to hide. Emily, I whispered. But she kept going, like she couldn't stop now that she'd started. Once he had my passwords, he started monitoring everything. He'd question me about every message, every email. He'd get angry if I liked another guy's post on social media. He made me delete Instagram because he said I was seeking attention from other men. I told myself it was fine. Social media is toxic anyway, right? I was better off without it. She turned to look at me then, and the pain in her eyes made me want to scream. He started criticizing my work, said I wasn't talented enough to make it as a freelancer, that I should get a real job. But then he'd also say that no one else would hire me, that I should be grateful he supported me. I started believing him. My confidence just disappeared. I'd sit at my desk and stare at a blank screen for hours, unable to create anything because I was so convinced it would be terrible. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice breaking. Why didn't you call me? Because I was ashamed, she said simply. Because you raised me to be strong and independent, and I'd let myself become this small, scared thing. Because every time I tried to think about leaving, I'd hear his voice in my head saying no one else would want me, that I was difficult, oversensitive, that I made him act this way. She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her shirt. And because I kept hoping he'd change, he'd have these moments where he'd be sweet again, like when we first met. He'd bring me flowers and apologize and say he was working on himself. And I'd think, okay, this is it. This is the breakthrough. He'll get better now. But he didn't, I said. He got worse. She stood up suddenly, began pacing. The last few months have been unbearable. He convinced me to add him to my bank account, said it would make it easier to pay bills. Then he started commenting on every purchase I made. $20 for art supplies was wasteful. $15 for lunch with my mom was too expensive. I should be saving more, being more responsible. I remembered that lunch 3 months ago. She'd seemed anxious the whole time, kept checking her phone. I'd thought she was distracted by work. I'd even felt a little hurt that she wasn't more present. The guilt of that memory made my throat tight. Then he started commenting on my weight, said I'd gained a few pounds, that I should be more careful about what I ate. He'd make these jokes about it in front of other people, little digs disguised as concern. When I told him it hurt my feelings, he said I was too sensitive, that he was just trying to help me be healthy. She stopped pacing, turned to face me. A month ago, he pushed me. My whole body went rigid. He what? We were arguing. I can't even remember what about. Something stupid. I was trying to leave the room because I knew if I stayed, it would just escalate. He grabbed my arm to stop me, and when I tried to pull away, he shoved me. Not hard enough to hurt me, but hard enough to make me stumble. And the look in his eyes, Mom. It was like he wanted to see if he could. Like he was testing a boundary. Did he apologize? Eventually. After I locked myself in the bathroom for an hour, he cried, said he'd never do it again, that I'd pushed him to it by walking away in the middle of a conversation, that if I'd just stayed and talked to him like an adult, he wouldn't have gotten so frustrated. She sat back down, and this time she did let me take her hand. It was cold and small in mine. I knew then that I had to leave, but it's taken me this whole month to work up the courage, to figure out how to do it. He monitors my bank account, my email, everything. I had to get a new phone without him knowing, had to open a new bank account and slowly transfer money into it, had to plan this like an escape, because that's what it is, an escape. I squeezed her hand, trying to control the rage and grief warring inside me. Where will you go? I have a friend from college, Jennifer, who lives upstate. She said I can stay with her for a while. She has a spare room. David doesn't know her, so he won't think to look for me there. You'll come home with me, I said immediately. You'll stay with me. She shook her head. That's the first place he'll look, Mom, and I need time. Time to figure out my next steps. Time to remember who I am without him in my head. Then I'll come with you, I said, to your friend's place. I'll stay with you until you're settled. Mom, no. My voice was firm. You're not doing this alone. I'm your mother, and I should have seen what was happening, and I didn't. Let me help you now, please. She started crying again, but this time she leaned into me, let me wrap my arms around her. She felt so fragile, like she might break apart completely. I held her the way I had when she was small and had fallen off her bike, scraping her knees on the pavement. I held her and let her cry and wished desperately that I could go back in time and see what I'd missed. I kept thinking of you, she said through her tears, of how strong you were when you left Dad. You just decided one day that you deserved better, and you left. You rebuilt your whole life. I wanted to be like that. My heart broke a little more. Oh, honey, I wasn't as strong as you think. I was terrified. And your father, for all his faults, was never cruel. He was absent and work-obsessed, but he never made me feel small. What you're doing right now, leaving despite being scared, that's real strength. She pulled back, wiped her eyes. I'm so angry at myself, for letting it get this far, for believing his lies, for becoming this person I don't recognize. You're not that person, I said firmly. You're my daughter. You're kind and talented and strong. He tried to make you forget that, but it's still true. It was always true. She nodded, though I wasn't sure she believed me. It would take time. Recovery from this kind of damage always did. We should finish packing, I said. When does he get home? She glanced at her phone. Usually around 6, but sometimes earlier. We need to hurry. We worked quickly, methodically. I helped her pack the rest of her clothes, her art supplies, the important documents she'd already gathered, her laptop, her hard drives with all her work files, the photo albums from before David, the ones she'd hidden in the back of her closet because he'd said they took up too much space. As we worked, she told me more, small things that individually seemed minor, but together painted a picture of systematic control and manipulation, how he'd isolated her from her support system, how he'd eroded her self-esteem so gradually she hadn't noticed until it was nearly gone, how he'd made her dependent on him financially and emotionally while convincing her she was the problem. I listened and packed and tried not to let my hands shake with the fury building inside me. We were loading the last bags into my car when she froze. His car, that's his car. I followed her gaze and saw a silver sedan turning onto the street. It was still 2 blocks away, but she recognized it immediately. Get in, I said. Now. We threw the last bag into the back seat and jumped into the car. My hands fumbled with the keys, dropping them once before managing to get them in the ignition. Drive, Emily whispered. Please drive. I pulled out of the parking spot just as the silver sedan drew closer. I forced myself to drive normally, not too fast, nothing that would draw attention. In my rearview mirror, I saw the car pull into the spot we'd just vacated. Did he see us? Emily asked, scrunched down in her seat. I don't know. Maybe. It doesn't matter. You're safe now. We drove in silence for several minutes, putting distance between us and her apartment. Emily kept turning around to look behind us, her breathing shallow and fast. It's okay, I kept saying. You're okay. I've got you. We were on the highway before she finally began to relax, her shoulders dropping from around her ears. She let out a long, shaky breath. I did it, she said, sounding surprised. I actually did it. You did it, I confirmed. I'm so proud of you. She started crying again, but this time it was different. Relief mixed with the fear, maybe a little bit of hope beginning to peek through. My phone rang through the car's speakers, and we both jumped. Emily's name flashed on the screen. He was calling from her old phone, the one she'd left behind. Don't answer it, she said quickly. I wasn't planning to. The phone rang again a minute later, and then again, and again. By the time we'd been driving for half an hour, he'd called 23 times. He knows, Emily said, staring at the screen as another call came through. He knows I'm gone. Let him know. You don't owe him anything. Not an explanation, not a conversation, nothing. The calls continued for the next hour. Interspersed with them were text messages to my phone. At first, they were concerned. Where is Emily? Is she okay? I'm worried. Then they turned angry. She needs to call me right now. This is unacceptable. Tell her to stop being childish. Then they became manipulative. I love her. I need to talk to her. I can change. Please, I'm begging you. I blocked his number. Emily watched me do it with wide eyes. You can do that? She asked. Of course you can. You don't have to let anyone have access to you that you don't want to have access. Not even him. Especially not him. She was quiet for a moment. Then she took out her new phone and blocked him too. It was such a small action, but I saw how much it meant to her. A tiny reclamation of power. We stopped at a gas station about halfway to Jennifer's place. While I filled the tank, Emily went inside to use the restroom. When she came back out, she was holding 2 coffees and a bag of chips. I got you the good coffee, she said, handing me a cup. The fancy one you like, but always say is too expensive. Thank you, sweetheart. We sat in the car and drank our coffee as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Emily pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself small in a way that hurt my heart. I don't know who I am anymore, she said quietly. Without him. I've spent so long being what he wanted me to be that I don't remember what I actually like or want or believe in. Then you'll figure it out, I said. One day at a time, one choice at a time. Start with small things. What do you want for dinner tonight? She thought about it, really thought about it, like it was a profound question. Pizza, she finally said, with mushrooms and extra cheese. David hated mushrooms. We never ordered them. Then we'll get pizza with mushrooms and extra cheese. She smiled, just a little. I used to like spicy food too. Before he said it upset his stomach, and I should be more considerate about what I made for dinner. So you'll eat spicy food again? I liked staying up late, being a night owl. He said it was lazy, that successful people wake up early. So you'll stay up as late as you want. I liked singing, really badly, just for fun, in the shower or while cooking. He said it was annoying. Then you'll sing as badly and as loudly as you want to. She started laughing through her tears. I liked wearing bright colors, red especially. He said they were too attention-seeking. We'll go shopping for red clothes. I liked dancing, just silly dancing around the house. He said it was childish. Then you'll dance. With each thing she remembered, I could see a little more of my daughter coming back. The girl who had sung off-key while doing dishes. The teenager who had stayed up until 3 a.m. reading books by flashlight. The young woman who had worn the brightest colors in any room because she wasn't afraid to be seen. David had tried to dim that light, but it was still there, just waiting to shine again. We arrived at Jennifer's place just after dark. She lived in a small house at the end of a quiet street, with a porch light that glowed warm and welcoming. She must have been watching for us because she came out before we'd even turned off the car. "Em," she said, pulling Emily into a hug. "I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're safe." Jennifer was tall and solid, with kind eyes and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who had been through her own battles and come out stronger. She helped us carry Emily's bags inside, while chattering about the room she'd prepared, the groceries she'd bought, the spare key she'd made. The house was small but cozy, filled with plants and books and the smell of something baking. Jennifer had made banana bread, Emily's favorite. "I wasn't sure if you'd be hungry," she said, "but I figured it couldn't hurt to have comfort food available." Emily burst into tears again, and Jennifer held her while she cried. I stood back and let them have the moment, grateful that my daughter had someone like this in her life, someone who had seen what I'd missed and had been ready to help the moment Emily reached out. Later, after Emily had settled into her room and Jennifer had gone to bed, my daughter and I sat on the back porch with mugs of tea. The night was cool, and I draped a blanket over both our shoulders. "Thank you," Emily said, "for coming, for not judging me, for helping me leave." "You never have to thank me for that. I'm your mother. Supporting you is not optional, it's fundamental." "I thought you'd be disappointed in me, for staying so long, for letting it happen in the first place." I set down my tea and took both her hands in mine, making sure she was looking at me. "Listen to me very carefully. What happened to you was not your fault. You didn't let anything happen. He chose to be controlling and manipulative and cruel. You chose to survive, and then you chose to leave, and both of those things take incredible courage. I am not disappointed in you. I'm in awe of you." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat like that for a long time, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you rest, you heal, you remember who you are, you build a life that's completely yours." "What if he finds me?" "Then we deal with it, Jennifer, you and me. You're not alone in this, Emily. You'll never be alone in this." "What if I'm not strong enough?" "You're the strongest person I know. You just can't see it yet because he spent 2 years trying to convince you otherwise. But I see it, and one day you'll see it too." We stayed on that porch until the tea went cold and the night grew so deep that the crickets stopped singing. When we finally went inside, I helped Emily make up her bed with the sheets Jennifer had left out. They were soft and clean, and as Emily climbed under them, she looked like a child again. "Will you stay?" she asked. "Just tonight?" "Of course." I lay down beside her on top of the covers and held her hand in the darkness. Her breathing eventually slowed and deepened, and I knew she'd fallen asleep. But I stayed awake for a long time, thinking about all the ways I could have seen, should have seen, what was happening to her. I thought about the missed signs, the way she'd stopped talking about her dreams, the way her light had dimmed bit by bit, the way she'd made herself smaller in every conversation, apologizing for taking up space. I wanted to go back to that apartment and confront him. I wanted to tell him exactly what I thought of men who break down the women they claim to love. But more than that, I wanted to be here, present for every moment of my daughter's recovery. Because that's what this was, I realized. Recovery. from trauma, from manipulation, from a systematic dismantling of self. It would take time. There would be setbacks. She would probably doubt herself, might even miss him in twisted moments, when the loneliness felt worse than the cage. But she'd done the hardest part. She'd left. And I would be there for every step that came after. In the morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and found Jennifer in the kitchen, making pancakes. Emily was still asleep, and Jennifer and I talked in low voices about practical things. The restraining order Emily should file, the therapist Jennifer could recommend, the self-defense class offered at the community center. We were planning, building a support system, creating a safety net. When Emily finally emerged, sleepy and rumpled, I was struck by how young she looked, and how tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. The kind that seeps into your bones from months or years of vigilance. But there was something else, too. Something in her eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. A spark. Small, fragile, but present. "Good morning," she said, and there was the tiniest hint of a smile. "Good morning, sweetheart. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." Over breakfast, we made plans. Jennifer had already arranged for Emily to work remotely from her house, giving her time and space to figure out her next steps. I would stay for a few days before heading home, but I'd come back every weekend until Emily felt more settled. "You don't have to do that," Emily said. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden. You're my daughter. There's a difference." Emily's phone buzzed. Her new phone. The one David wasn't supposed to have the number to. We all froze. She picked it up with shaking hands, and then let out a breath. "It's Sarah. She's asking if I'm okay. Jennifer must have told her." "Is it okay that I did?" Jennifer asked. "I thought you might need your friends right now." Emily nodded, texting Sarah back. "It's okay. I want them to know. I don't want to hide anymore." That afternoon, Sarah came by with another friend, Rebecca. They brought wine and chocolate and fierce hugs. They sat with Emily for hours, letting her tell the story again, filling in pieces they'd seen but hadn't understood at the time. "I knew something was wrong," Sarah said, "but every time I asked, you said you were fine. I didn't want to push." "He was always there," Emily said. "Every time we met up, he'd call. Sometimes he'd just show up. I think he was monitoring my location through my phone. I was never really alone." Her friends looked stricken. "We should have tried harder," Rebecca said. "We should have found a way." "You couldn't have known," Emily said. "I didn't really know, not clearly until the end. That's what makes it so insidious. It happens so slowly that you normalize it. You make excuses. You think maybe you're overreacting." Listening to them talk, I understood something important. Emily needed this. She needed to name what had happened to her. She needed to say it out loud to people who loved her. Each telling was a reclamation, a refusal to let shame silence her. Over the next few days, I watched my daughter begin to unfold. She started sketching again, filling pages with colors and shapes that had no purpose except to exist. She played music loudly. She laughed at stupid jokes. She wore a red shirt Jennifer had lent her and didn't apologize for it once. She also cried. A lot. Sometimes over something specific, sometimes over nothing at all. The tears would just come, unexpected and overwhelming. Each time, someone was there to hold her, to tell her it was okay to grieve, even for something that had hurt her. "I miss him," she confessed one night, and the guilt in her voice was palpable. "Isn't that crazy? I miss the person who made me so miserable." "It's not crazy," I said. "You don't miss him. You miss who you hoped he'd be. You miss the good moments because they made the bad ones feel bearable. That's normal." "I keep thinking about going back, about calling him, about trying one more time." "That's normal too, but normal doesn't mean you should do it." "How do you stop? How do you stop wanting to go back to something familiar even when it's bad?" 1 minute at a time. 1 hour. One day. You remind yourself why you left. You think about who you want to be and whether going back would let you be that person. And you let the people who love you remind you when you forget. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Will I ever feel normal again? You'll feel better than normal. You'll feel free. On my last day before heading home, Emily and I took a walk through Jennifer's neighborhood. It was early November, and the trees had turned brilliant shades of red and gold. Leaves crunched under our feet. I'm scared, Emily said suddenly. Not just of him finding me. I'm scared of myself, of trusting my judgment again. What if I end up in another relationship like this? What if there's something wrong with me that attracts this kind of person? There's nothing wrong with you, I said firmly. Sometimes good people end up in bad situations. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means someone took advantage of your kindness. But how do I know next time? How do I see the signs before it's too late? You learn them. You go to therapy. You listen to that voice inside you that knows when something isn't right. And you remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness always, not just when someone is trying to win you over. We walked in silence for a while, and then Emily said, I want to go back to school, get my master's degree. I had planned to do it before I met David, but he convinced me it was a waste of money. Then you'll go back to school. I want to travel. I've always wanted to see Italy. The art, the architecture. David said traveling was impractical. Then you'll go to Italy. I want to be brave, like you. I stopped walking and turned to face her. Emily, you are brave. You left. That was the bravest thing you could have done. She looked at me with those red-rimmed eyes, and I saw both the child she'd been and the woman she was becoming. I don't feel brave. I feel broken. Broken things can heal, and sometimes they heal stronger than they were before. We walked back to Jennifer's house as the sun began to set, casting everything in golden light. When we got there, Jennifer had made dinner, and the three of us ate together, talking about small things, movies, books, the weather. Normal things that felt precious in their ordinariness. That night, as I packed my bag to leave in the morning, Emily came to my room. Mom? Yes, sweetheart? Thank you for not making me feel stupid, for not saying I told you so, or why didn't you leave sooner, or any of the things I've been saying to myself. I set down the shirt I was folding and pulled her into a hug. I would never say those things. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. We all do. I'm going to be okay, aren't I? You're going to be better than okay. You're going to be magnificent. She laughed a little at that. Magnificent seems like a stretch. Just wait, you'll see. The next morning, I hugged her goodbye on Jennifer's front porch. She clung to me a little longer than usual, and I let her. Call me if you need anything, I said. Day or night, anything at all. I will, and Mom, I love you. I love you too, more than you'll ever know. The drive home felt longer than the drive there. My mind kept replaying moments from the past 2 years, seeing them now through a different lens. The times Emily had seemed distant. The occasions she'd canceled plans last minute. The way her voice had gotten smaller and smaller over the phone. I'd been so caught up in my own life, in my work, in my assumption that she was fine, that I'd missed the signs, and I couldn't forgive myself for that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I could be there for her now. I could help her rebuild. I could show her what it looked like to be loved without conditions, without control. When I got home, my house felt too quiet. I turned on music, something upbeat, and opened all the windows despite the November chill. I needed air, needed movement, needed to shake off the heaviness that had settled into my bones. My phone rang. For a moment, my heart seized, thinking it might be David. But it was just my sister, Linda. Hey, she said. Haven't heard from you in a few days. Everything okay? And I told her. Everything. About Emily and David and the escape. About the signs I'd missed and the guilt I carried. About the fear that still lived in my chest. The worry that he'd find her, that she'd go back, that I'd lose her again. Linda listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said, "You did the right thing. You helped her leave. That's what matters. But I should have seen it sooner." Maybe, or maybe she wasn't ready to leave sooner. You can't control everything, even when it comes to your kids. All you can do is be there when they need you. And you were. Her words helped a little. Enough to get me through that first day alone. Enough to make me believe that maybe, eventually, the guilt would ease. Emily and I talked every day. Sometimes for an hour, sometimes just for 5 minutes. She'd tell me small victories. She'd gone to the grocery store alone and hadn't felt anxious. She'd had coffee with Sarah and laughed until her stomach hurt. She'd sketched for 4 hours straight and created something she was proud of. There were bad days, too. Days when she woke up panicking, convinced David had found her. Days when she missed him so intensely it physically hurt. Days when the trauma felt too big to carry. On those days, I'd remind her to breathe, to take it one moment at a time, to remember that healing isn't linear, that setbacks don't erase progress. 2 weeks after she left, Emily filed for a restraining order. It was granted without contest. David didn't even show up to court. "I think he's moved on," Emily told me on the phone, and I heard the complicated mix of relief and hurt in her voice. "He's already dating someone else. Sarah saw him on a dating app." "Good," I said. "Let him be someone else's problem." "I feel sorry for her, whoever she is." "You can feel sorry for her and still be glad it's not you. Both things can be true." She was quiet for a moment. "You're right. I'm glad it's not me. I don't miss him. I miss the life I thought I was going to have, but I don't miss him. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." "I think I'm going to be okay, Mom. I really think I am." And I believed her. 3 months later, I visited again. This time, when I pulled up to Jennifer's house, Emily was waiting on the porch, and she looked different. Her hair was cut short, a style she'd always wanted, but David had said didn't suit her. She was wearing bright yellow, and she was smiling, really smiling. "You look beautiful," I said, pulling her into a hug. "I feel beautiful," she said. "For the first time in years, I feel like myself." Over that weekend, she showed me her new work. Bright, bold designs that practically vibrated with life. She'd started taking on clients again, building her portfolio, remembering what it felt like to create without someone criticizing every choice. "I'm thinking about going back to school in the fall," she said over dinner. "There's a program at the State University, graphic design with a focus on digital media. It's what I've always wanted to do." "Then you should do it," I said. "I'm also thinking about getting my own place. Jennifer has been amazing, but I need my own space, my own life." "That's wonderful, honey." "And I'm thinking about dating again, eventually. Not now, but someday, when I'm ready." I felt a flash of fear at that, but I pushed it down. "When you're ready, you'll know, and you'll know what to look for and what to avoid." "I'm in therapy," she said. "Twice a week. It's helping. I'm learning about patterns and boundaries and how to recognize red flags early. I'm learning that I deserve to be treated well, that it's not too much to expect basic respect and kindness." "You always deserved those things." "I know that now. I didn't before. But I do now." That night, Sarah and Rebecca came over, and we all sat around Jennifer's kitchen table, drinking wine and eating too much cheese. They told stories about Emily in college, before David, when she was loud and bright and unafraid. "Remember when you sang karaoke at that bar?" Sarah said, laughing. "You were so bad, but you didn't care. You just belted it out like you were Beyoncé." Emily laughed. "I'd forgotten about that. I was terrible." "You were fearless," Rebecca corrected. "There's a difference." "I want to be fearless again," Emily said quietly. "I'm working on it." You're already getting there, Jennifer said. You've come so far in just 3 months. As I watched my daughter laugh with her friends, I felt something ease in my chest. She was healing, slowly, painfully, but unmistakably. The light that David had tried to extinguish was burning bright again. Before I left on Sunday, Emily walked me to my car. I'm proud of you, I said, more than I can express. I couldn't have done it without you, without all of you. I needed to know I wasn't alone. You're never alone. Remember that. She hugged me tight, and when she pulled away, there were tears in her eyes. But they were different tears, not the desperate, broken tears of 3 months ago. These were tears of gratitude, of hope, of beginning again. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart, so much. As I drove away, I watched her in my rearview mirror. She stood on the sidewalk, waving, and even from a distance, I could see her smile. A real smile, an Emily smile. 6 months later, Emily moved into her own apartment. It was small but filled with light, and she decorated it exactly how she wanted. Bright colors on the walls, plants everywhere. Her artwork displayed proudly, a space that was entirely, completely hers. She started school and thrived. Her professors praised her work. She made new friends. She went on a few dates, nothing serious, just practice for being open again. She still had hard days. Days when the trauma crept up on her unexpectedly, when something would trigger a memory or a fear. But she had tools now, therapy, friends, boundaries, the knowledge that she could trust herself. A year after she left, Emily came home for Thanksgiving. As we sat around my table, eating turkey and stuffing, she raised her glass. I want to make a toast, she said, to second chances, to starting over, to the people who help us remember who we are when we forget. Mom, Jennifer, Sarah, Rebecca, all of you. Thank you for saving my life. You saved your own life, I said. We just held your hand while you did it. She smiled. Then thank you for holding my hand. We clinked glasses, and I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was different than she'd been 2 years ago, older, certainly, but also stronger, more sure of herself, more aware of her own worth. David had tried to break her, to remake her into something small and manageable, but she'd refused to stay broken. She'd gathered up all her scattered pieces and put herself back together. And in doing so, she'd become someone even more remarkable than she'd been before. That night, as Emily and I did dishes together, she said, "You know what's funny? I used to think strength meant never breaking, never showing weakness, never asking for help. But I've learned that real strength is breaking and choosing to heal. Real strength is admitting you need help and accepting it when it's offered." When did you get so wise? I asked, bumping her shoulder with mine. I had a good teacher. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence, and I thought about how far we'd both come. How we'd both learned that love isn't about control or possession. It's about support and freedom. It's about holding on and letting go in equal measure. Emily stayed for the whole weekend, and on Sunday morning, as she packed her car to drive back to her apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of worry, because I'd probably worry about her for the rest of my life. But peace in knowing she was okay. Peace in knowing she'd found her way back to herself. Drive safe, I said, hugging her goodbye. Text me when you get home. I will. And Mom? Yes? Thank you for coming that day, for helping me pack, for not asking questions I wasn't ready to answer, for just being there. Always, I said. I will always be there. She got in her car, and I watched her drive away. But this time, I wasn't watching her leave. I was watching her go toward something, toward her life, toward her future, toward all the possibilities that opened up when you chose yourself. And as I walked back into my house, I thought about that day 3 months ago when I'd found her packing her bags. How terrified I'd been, how helpless I'd felt, how desperately I'd wanted to fix everything instantly. But some things can't be fixed instantly. Some things take time and patience, and the courage to keep going, even when it feels impossible. Emily had taught me that. She'd shown me what real bravery looked like. It wasn't the absence of fear. It was moving forward despite it. It was saying, I can't live like this anymore, and meaning it. It was packing your bags and leaving behind everything familiar because you knew, deep in your bones, that you deserved better. My daughter had done that. She'd saved herself. And I'd never been more proud of anyone in my entire life. Months turned into years. Emily finished her master's degree with honors. She built a successful freelance business. She traveled to Italy and sent me photos of herself, standing in front of the Sistine Chapel, her face glowing with joy. She dated, carefully and thoughtfully, learning what healthy love looked like. She even, eventually, fell in love again. With someone kind and gentle, who encouraged her dreams and respected her boundaries. Who loved her loudly and proudly and without conditions. Who made her laugh and gave her space, and never once made her feel small. When she brought him home to meet me, I watched them together carefully, looking for signs, watching for red flags. But all I saw was my daughter, happy and whole, and completely herself. All I saw was a man who looked at her like she was the most magnificent thing he'd ever seen. "Do you like him?" Emily asked later, when we were alone in the kitchen. "I do," I said. "But more importantly, you like him, and you trust yourself. That's what matters." She smiled. "I do trust myself. Finally. It took a long time, but I do." "I'm so proud of you, Emily, of everything you've overcome, of the woman you've become. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." She hugged me then, and I held my daughter close, breathing in the lavender scent of her shampoo, feeling the solid reality of her in my arms. She was safe, she was happy, she was free, and that was everything. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that day. The day I drove to her apartment, expecting an ordinary visit, and found her packing her bags instead. The day she looked at me with those terrified eyes and said, "Mom, I can't live like this anymore." I think about how easily it could have gone differently, if I hadn't believed her, if I'd told her to try harder, to give it another chance, to not give up so easily, if I'd prioritized keeping the peace over her safety. But I didn't do any of those things. I helped her pack. I drove her to safety. I held her hand through the hardest days of her life. And in doing so, I got to witness something extraordinary. I got to watch my daughter break free from something that was slowly killing her. I got to see her remember who she was. I got to be there as she rebuilt her life into something beautiful and entirely her own. That's what I think about on those sleepless nights. Not the guilt of missing the signs earlier, not the anger at the man who hurt her, not the fear of what could have happened if she'd stayed. I think about her smile, the real one. The Emily smile that lights up her whole face. I think about her laugh, loud and unrestrained and unafraid. I think about her voice on the phone, telling me about her day, her plans, her dreams. I think about how she signs her texts now. Not just love you, but love you, and I'm proud of me. Because she should be proud. She did the impossible. She left. She survived. She thrived. And every day, she reminds me that it's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to say, "I can't live like this anymore," and mean it. It's never too late to pack your bags and walk toward a better life. My daughter taught me that. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure she knows how much I admire her for it. She saved herself. And in doing so, she taught me what real strength looks like. It looks like my Emily. Brave and bright and beautifully, defiantly alive.